the External Affairs and Government Relations Committee of the URI Board of Trustees, and it gives me great pleasure to begin by introducing two new colleagues. They've been with us now for a few months, already making a big difference in the university's ability to advance its agendas in Washington at the state level and at the municipal and community level. But we're going to ask Carlos Lopez Estrada and Lauren Broccoli Burgess to introduce themselves, talk a bit about the work and about some of the fruits of their work already happening in the near term. We're going to follow that by a campaign and an alumni engagement update from Lil O'Rourke. And Lil will also talk to us about the results of the Day of Giving. So I want to start by turning it over to Carlos and Lauren, and also extend my own warm welcome to them both, not only to URI, but to the work of our committee. It's been wonderful to engage with them so far, and I know we have a lot to learn from them and a lot to gain from their insights. So let me turn it right over to you both.
Great. Thank you, Christine, and members of the board, members of the public who are joining us remotely. Thank you for being here. My name is Carlos Lopez Estrada, and my partner here is Lauren Burgess, and we are the government relations team that is working to advance the University of Rhode Island's legislative agenda at the federal and the state level. I'm a URI alum, proud member of the talent development team. I graduated from Roger Williams with my law degree, and I've got a couple of decades worth of experience with municipal and state government.
Thanks, Carlos, and thanks, members of the board. Lauren Burgess here. I am a Providence native. I recently moved back to Rhode Island to take on this position, so really excited to be home and working for URI. A Boston University grad, also an Roger Williams Law grad, along with Carlos. I did work for Jim Langevin. Sad to hear about his retirement. We can talk a little bit about that, but that was a wonderful experience. And most recently, during my time in Washington, D.C., I was a registered federal lobbyist for the past about 10 years. And I work primarily with universities, so both private and public.
Thank you, Lauren. I know we're going to walk through a number of slides about where we are with legislative priorities, what we see in the year ahead, and how we think about lifting the profile of URI in the context of those key priorities. So I'm going to turn it right back over to you for that presentation.
Great, thank you so much. And I'd like to begin by addressing something that has just happened. As some of you are aware, Governor McKee's budget just went live at 4 o'clock today. And some of us have had a chance to peruse the executive summary, but I want everyone to be assured that our government relations team, our finance team, our URI team is going to do a deep dive into this budget, look to see where we are, where our priorities have been met, where they haven't been met, and I can assure you we're going to work hard to make sure that URI's priorities are taken care of in this budget. Just remember, the budget is a starting point. There's still a long way to go in the process. It has to go through the House. It's got to go through hearings. Then it's got to go to the Senate. And then there's got to be reconciliation. So this is a process that's going to take from now until June, maybe the early part of July. So let's all take a moment to appreciate what's here, but know that we've got a lot of work to do. And along with our partners at Panone, Lopes, Devereaux, and O'Gara, with Maddie Lopes, we are going to advocate for the best results for the university. So with that being said, we're going to address some of the key legislative priorities that the university has. The big one is really the American Rescue Plan funds, which are providing an unprecedented amount of federal dollars coming down to the state of Rhode Island. It's something that the federal government has given to the states, and at the state level, it's going to be handled by the House ARPA task force, which is going to hold hearings and determine where that money is going to go on the House side. The Senate is going to handle that money and funding through the Senate Finance Committee. They're also going to have their hearings and make determinations on that money. Obviously, the governor has made recommendations on the ARPA funding as well. So that's all going to be part of the process that's going to play out over the next couple of months. Now, I do want people to understand that those hearings are going to be independent of the regular finance process that happens at the state. So the state budget is going to go through its regular financial process. The ARPA funds are going to have their own process by those two committees in the House and in the Senate. We're pursuing about $300 million worth of requests, and we feel optimistic that our priorities are going to be heard and hopefully acted upon.
So looking towards some opportunities at the federal level that remain our top priorities, of course, people are aware of this massive amount, trillions of dollars enacted into law for infrastructure. That bill, that legislation has money that'll come directly to Rhode Island, $2.5 billion, that is dog-eared for specific projects. And then there's also money that's going to flow at the national level through national competitions. Our approach, because this is a priority, of course, is that we have been leveraging the congressional delegation. They are aware of our top priorities. These include those requests that we're putting forward for the ARPA money, but it's additional projects across campus, including deferred maintenance. So helping us identify opportunities that we can pursue at the national level through these competitions. With that being said, President Carlange has also launched a presidential federal funding task force. This is focused on strategizing and leveraging URI's internal resources so we can take full advantage of those national competitions that will be coming out. At the state level, because we know this money is coming directly to Rhode Island through state agencies, through the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank to do specific projects, we've been engaging with state officials. President Carlange recently met with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and positioning ourselves so we can take full advantage of that funding. The other piece that I just wanted to mention on is another annual process that we engage in, and that looking forward we will be much more aggressive about, and that's the federal funding process. So like the state annual budget, right, the federal government, also passes a budget each year. There is an opportunity for URI to get funding for some of our key programs. And last year we had a mechanism that came back called earmarks. That was congressionally directed spending coming directly to URI. The great news is that we have immediate success with that. It's pending, but should legislation pass into law, which we think will happen in hopefully the next few months, roughly $5 million is coming to support projects that we put forward in the blue economy and life sciences. Looking ahead, we already have an internal process underway for the next fiscal cycle and identifying projects that we can bring to the delegation that will further enhance these additional asks we have at the state level in the blue economy and the life sciences.
Great.
So as Lauren alluded to, we work together as a team. What's important to understand is that the amount of money that's flowing from the federal level to the state level is unprecedented, and it requires coordination. So between Lauren, myself, and our lobbying firm of Maddie Lopes, we're anticipating that this is going to be our legislative timeline. So if you will indulge me, I'll walk us through this timeline. Right now in January, we just had the opening of the General Assembly in Rhode Island. As some of you saw in the news, one of the first things that they acted upon was Governor McKee's ARPA request, which was, they called it the 10% down payment. That was focused on a lot of social issues, housing, the hospitality, basically nothing to do with the University of Rhode Island in that sense. Our requests were not part of that. What's happening in January also is the House and the Senate are taking a look at the guidelines provided by the feds, provided by the programs that are going to be administered, and trying to figure out how they're going to have the hearings, set up the the review of the plans that have been submitted through the ARPA portal, the official state ARPA portal. So a lot of the ground laying is what's happening right now in January. We've had some successes here at the university as well. We've had the Senate President visit us here on campus, take a tour of the facilities that we're asking funding for. We've had our congressional delegation visit the campus on multiple occasions, also to view some of our buildings and asks, but also to participate in some of the fantastic programs that we run at the university. And then the other thing that's happening in January is we're working on developing our federal funding request. So to make sure that we're taking full advantage of what's out there, along with what's happening at the state level. Now, looking forward, in February, we have Speaker Shikachi slated to visit the campus to do a similar tour to what Senate President Ruggiero did. We want to make sure that we highlight our buildings that we need help for. We want him to see the projects that we're asking funding for, so that way they have a better understanding of from the speaker's point of view, his leadership team, his finance chair, and the chairman of the ARPA task force. They'll all be hopefully part of the tour, and that'll be helpful in advocating for our needs here at URI. Then after he's here, the legislature will go on their February break. That's a period of time when the House and Senate, their finance teams get together and start talking about, hey, what are the programs that you think we should fund? What are we looking at? That's when they start formulating an idea of what the viable options are. In February, we're going to continue to work on submitting our federal funding request. And that's, a critical time, because that's when you put everything in that you really, really need to come out of the feds. And then we're going to be developing URI's Department of Defense priorities, which Lauren is going to work with her team to get in front of the congressional delegation.
And just a note here, this is, I think, a perfect example of that the activities we're doing at the state and federal level, they sometimes overlap, right? So it's important that Carlos and I continue to work as a team and coordinate, because of course, when money's flowing from the feds to the state, there has to be a coordinated advocacy effort. So I think we're pointing here on this timeline that these are anticipated advocacy efforts. They're not totally conclusive of what we're going to be doing. It's just to provide a flavor of the cadence of what's going to happen over the next few months as we go through a full legislative session for Rhode Island and head towards the end of the federal fiscal year. Just to jump in here, I'll just say we get to March, and President Perlin is going to take a trip to DC to meet with the congressional delegation, higher ed officials, additional federal agency officials. This is going to be really important, because in addition to what we're doing at the state and that interaction we're having with the General Assembly, we also want to have a profile at the federal level as well. And I think we mentioned that the federal delegation wants to be as helpful as they can what's happening in the state, but also what we could get at the national level. So this is to provide an overview of the government relations advocacy efforts. And I think we'll talk in a little bit too about how we can leverage the board at strategic intervals as session progresses, as the federal fiscal year continues, so that we can have the most impact and advance our advocacy priorities.
And Lauren, before we go to the next slide, and not to devolve too much into this, but just at a very high level, it is consequential news for URI that Congressman Langevin has decided to not seek re-election. There's obviously lots of speculation, potential people, some have announced they're not seeking it, some have remained quiet, some who are exploring. When you think about both the risks and opportunities to the URI of a campaign and some potential shifts that result from people leaving current positions elsewhere in the state, how should this group think about that?
Sure. So that's a great question. And of course, as a Langevin alum, I'm sad to see him leaving that position. Of course, it's a very powerful position for Rhode Island and for URI because of his role in oversight of the Department of Defense. So it's a big loss and a champion. That is right now the 28th Democrat to announce that they would not be seeking re-election for 2022. So major challenge for the National Democratic Party. And certainly, I think it'll be a closely watched race, because the margin for the majority for the Democrats in the House is razor thin. So you
It's
have
so slim. Yeah.
so slim, talking about how the House may flip. So it's going to be, it's not going to be a sleepy one for Rhode Island in the second congressional district, right? And there's a lot of chatter. I'm sure Carlos can give us maybe the inside scoop later on what's happening in terms of jockeying for that. But for what it presents for URI is an immediate opportunity, because before Congressman Langevin leaves, right, we want to have conversations about those projects for URI that he's championed and how we can create a legacy with some of those things, with cybersecurity initiatives with the Department of Defense, high performance computing, workforce development. And then the challenge will be when we have a new person in that role, a new member, that won't have the leadership role on committees that Congressman Langevin has achieved after 20 years of serving. So a bit of a challenge there, but also an opportunity for the immediate. And then in the long term, early on, getting that individual who has that new position to be the champion for URI, right? So getting some early on, what's something that they're going to be frankly their pet project, and how do we fit into that? Maybe it's the blue economy, who knows? So I think there's lots to come in the next few weeks and months out of that really, I think, massive announcement that was made this week. Carlos, I don't know if you want to jump in and add anything.
The only thing I'll add is that this is a snapshot of the timeline that we're anticipating. Don't forget that as all of these things that you see on this slide are happening, the regular budget process is going through. We're also part of the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, which the university was a winner, was awarded recently. And that program is going to be coming to fruition during this timeline. So we, as a government relations team and as a university, are going to have our hands full with a lot of great opportunities coming our way.
Let's speak to this progress slide, and then I will, after that, call a roll call and ask for a vote around the minutes of the agenda now that we have a quorum. So let's get through this.
Sure. So I think Carlos touched on a few of these things, but we just wanted to provide a snapshot of some of the major successes and progress we've had on our advocacy efforts since President Parlange came on board and since this team really hit the ground running in fall. So Carlos mentioned this amazing tour where we had, frankly, Senate leadership at URI for almost a full day on a bus, going all over campus, going to Narragansett Bay campus, so they could really experience the firsthand when we're talking about these ARPA requests. They saw the Horn building, one of the pieces of infrastructure that needs massive renovation. They met with researchers. It was extremely successful, and that's what we have scheduled with Speaker Chikarchi coming on here in February. Another thing I just think is really important to highlight, certainly Rhode Island is very fortunate to be a small state because the delegation spends a lot of time interacting with the flagship university. We've had Senator Reid in White House here several times, meeting with the president, attending events. Senator Reid is coming back on Tuesday of next week. We also had outgoing Congressman Jim Langevin come to the Kingston campus, sit with the president for about an hour and a half right before Thanksgiving to have a conversation about our priorities related to the blue economy, life sciences, and what we can do more in cybersecurity. Ways that we could expand the collaboration we already have. Carlos mentioned we were recipients of this national award that is really incredibly powerful because we were leading a consortium of basically, I feel like every organization in the state of Rhode Island, right? And kudos to the group that is shepherding that grant. That's phase one. It unlocks the potential for $100 million as we compete for a larger award. It has been really incredible to see what types of projects they're advancing through that award. Think about the blue economy and being totally inclusive and next generation workforce. That's URI. We're on the map, and we're one of only a few institutions that have one of those awards that's focused on the blue economy. So we are leaders nationally, and the proof is in the pudding because that's something that happened. We applied for that in the fall, and we just heard back. So demonstrating that we're already having prowess in that area. And then maybe, Carlos, do you want to talk a little bit about the state of the state, because you and the president were there earlier this week at the State House.
Yeah, and what a huge win. Carlos, why don't you tell us a bit about that?
So thank you. On Tuesday, President Parlange and I had the privilege to attend the governor's first State of the State address. And as some of you saw, he really took a shine to the university and
Mhm.
mentioned us as leaders in the blue economy and how the Narragansett Bay campus is part of his plan to address the growth of the blue economy. Obviously, the governor is a supporter of the university, and under the relationship that he has with President Parlange, they've become acquainted with each other. They've been able to talk, and all of that has paid off in a recognition at the governor's office that URI is a critical partner in the blue economy. Basically, anytime that the word blue economy comes out of the governor's mouth, he should be thinking URI, and we're making sure that that's on his mind at all times. So I think we've had some great successes there.
Great, thank you.
Carlos and Mark, could you clarify one thing for me, that the Build Back Better for U.S. Commerce, to my understanding, we made it to the next level. We didn't win a grant. We made it very great win for us. One of what, 70 something?
Mhm.
So we're one of 60. There
One
were
of 60.
530
And
that
70
were
or
applying.
100
Many
million.
states did not even get one.
Mhm.
Right, so we made it to the next level. I don't think we got any.
We received a planning grant.
Oh, okay, got
Yes.
it.
So it's $500,000.
Yeah.
I see.
Collins, I noticed Congressman Langervin's, not Langer, but Cicilline's name is not listed anywhere. Is there a reason for that?
Only by a typographical omission. We actually met with Congressman Cicilline. He met with President Parlange and myself. We had a great meeting, and actually Lauren had a meeting today with his staff to talk about some of the funding opportunities at the federal level.
Mhm.
So even though we're not in his district, he is also a champion for the university.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I assume the nursing school's in his district.
Yes, and actually, that's a great prompt, because the conversation I had this morning with his staff was discussing when he's going to visit us next at the nursing college, and how we could have a conversation about the healthcare shortage in Rhode Island, the nursing shortage. So I won't, the College of Nursing is working on some really innovative ways that we can get individuals into the workforce in Rhode Island and get them to stay in part of the nursing community. And that's something that's on the slide here, but we have early conversations with Cicilline's office, and stay tuned. Hopefully something will get on the schedule for the early spring where he can make a visit to the Providence campus.
That's great. And I think we should all think about URI as having its campus in both districts in Rhode Island, since we do have a footprint in both the first and second CD. Any questions around these progress of the last several months, or around this profile raising activity? I think if not, what we will do, and thank you for both Lauren and Carlos for your presentation, and thank you, Mike, and others for your questions. Let's just, while we turn to Lil's presentation and allow her to put her slides up, why don't we just take care of some of the official administrative business of the committee, and start by taking a roll call vote. Please just say present when your name is called. Christine Heenan, I am here. Armin Sabatoni.
Present.
Courtney Nicolato.
Present.
Vahid Onjazeri.
Present.
Barbara Cottam. Tim Del Judas. Margot Cook. Margot Cook is present, yeah?
Present.
Mike McNally.
Present.
Mark Parlange.
Present.
With a quorum being present, the meeting is officially called to order. We will, first, I'd like a motion that the University Advancement and External Affairs Committee of the URI Board of Trustees accept the agenda for the meeting of January 20th, 2022.
This is Armin, so moved.
Is there someone who has a second for that motion?
Yep, it's Courtney, I'll second.
Thank you, Courtney. Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, can I ask for a voice vote? All in favor?
Yes.
If you have opposed or abstentions from voting, can you please identify yourself for the minutes? Okay, the motion to accept the agenda is approved. The next agenda item is approval of the minutes from our last meeting on September 23rd. As a reminder, we did not meet at the last board meeting, so our last meeting was in fact on September 23rd. May I have a motion that the University Advancement and External Affairs Committee of the URI Board of Trustees approve the minutes of the September 23rd, 2021 meeting of the committee. Is there a motion?
Almond, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Vahid.
Thank you, Vahid. Any discussion? There being no discussion, by voice vote, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
If there are any noes or abstentions, please identify yourself for the minutes. The motion is approved, and we are going to move directly to a report from Lil O'Rourke on the campaign and alumni engagement. It's been a really exciting window for the campaign. And Lil, we'll just ask that while you have the floor, you also talk about a day of giving. I've asked Lil to bring the discussion to this committee. When we were at the full board in September, there was discussion of the various components that impact reputation, and endowed chairs and professorships came up. It's a really important thing for us to all understand how that impacts the reputation and selectivity of the university. So I've asked Lil to speak a bit about that at the end of her presentation as well. We may at some point want to bring that piece before the full board, but over to you, Lil.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. And I'm pleased to have joining me Jeff Cabral, the Vice President for Development. And Jeff will be.
Can't hear her.
Can't hear me?
No.
All right. That's good to know. How about this? Is this better?
Yeah.
Whatever Mark was doing, Mark was crystal clear in the room.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So I want to thank Christine. I want to introduce Jeff Cabral, Vice President for Development, who will be giving some of the report. And before I get started, I want to acknowledge that on January 25th, Christine will be speaking in our Women's Leadership Speaking Series about her career in communications and public affairs. And we're very grateful to her for giving her time. It's a very popular series. So thank you, Christine.
Happy to do so.
And I also want to acknowledge what an amazing, strong partnership the foundation has with the university. It gets better every year, and we're in this together. And I'm pleased to give a brief campaign report, and then we will talk about Day of Giving and also the need for endowed chairs and professorships. As you know, we are in a capital campaign. We increased the goal from 250 million to 300 million. Some people were whispering 350. That's not, I wasn't ready for that one. You were listening. I wasn't listening. I was not letting that in. So at any rate, we have 5 pillars to the campaign. If the slide changes, it doesn't change. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Yes, thank you. So very importantly, student access, that's scholarship dollars. URI learning experience is undergraduate research, going to J-term, studying abroad, transformative faculty leadership. This is where we're going to talk about endowed chairs and professorships, innovative, distinctive programs such as the Ryan Institute for Neuroscience and some other emerging programs that we have around blue economy in the ocean. And the strategic opportunities is really giving university leadership the resources to be agile, to make quick decisions, and to jump on opportunities. URI does not have a lot of money available to see an opportunity and seize it and invest in it. And that's something that's really holding us back. So we are really trying to raise unrestricted support that can be directed by the leadership, the deans, the president, and others to continue to allow us to take advantage of opportunities. If you can change it, because this isn't working. Thanks. So just you can ring a bell. We're at $228 million for the campaign, 228.1. That's as of yesterday. And, we're doing very well. So we always look at how the money is distributed. Outright gifts, it's cash. Pledges are multi-year pledges of usually 5 years, and then deferred gifts. Deferred gifts are people who name us in their will or make some kind of a planned gift. And that's us filling the pipeline for our successors in terms of a strong pool of future resources. Right now, from the work of prior folks and some of these dollars, we have about 84 million out in expected bequests from people who've told us, you're in my will, this is how much I think it's going to be. That's 84 million out over the future. And so we're constantly building for the future, but also trying to bring in gifts for current impact. Okay. Then this shows campaign by purpose. Capital improvements, that's bricks and mortar, not as much. Some of that is the basketball practice facility. Rhody Now, that's our unrestricted dollars. Those are the the dollars that come in, that's the checking account. That's what gets spent every year to meet needs. Operating are going towards specific programs, and then endow gifts, that's building the endowment. We're going to talk about the endowment too. We go. And then this is our trend line. Before we announced our goal was 300 million, we were way above the trend line. We're still slightly above it, and we may dip down a little bit, hopefully not, but at any rate, it's very healthy. We end June 30th, 2024 will be the end of the campaign. And we're already working on the next campaign in terms of filling the pipeline for future donors. So that is the overview of where we are in terms of fundraising. Questions for me about the campaign?
Bill, are you getting donations to places where look like everyone gives to something specific? How are we doing on not necessarily unrestricted, but are you getting to places where you're looking?
Yeah.
You know where the need is.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when you have these 5 pillars, do you take, oh, we want 50 million here, 100 million here? Very rarely does it all add up, because it's about donor intent and interest and passion matching with our needs. And so I would say we're doing really well with scholarship. And I think that really resonates with people, and it's easy to understand. Where we're not doing well is in the area of faculty support. And that's where we're really trying to push out how we need to do much more to support our faculty, because it's a little more challenging to explain. And the other piece we really want to get to is increasing support for PhD students. That's critical to Mark's goal to elevate our research profile. And so we've got to raise money so we can supplement what we're able to use to attract PhD students, because we're losing top candidates to other schools. And it's not a lot of money, and a little money can make a big difference. So we're really committed to seeing how we can get those numbers and start to extrapolate that into, 10 top quality PhD students for X departments, so it matches where Mark and the interim provost are trying to take us. So anyway, I want to ask Jeff to talk about Day of Giving. Thank you.
So just to clarify, we call this Day of Giving, but it's really a strategic marketing campaign over the course of several weeks or even several months as we lead up to this day. So we've had really incredible success this year, almost $1.5 million in gifts. To give you some comparison, last year we raised $1.1 million. So this is really quite a big uptick in support. Some of the key stats that I want to share with you, we had over 1,000 new donors on this day alone, which is incredible.
Right.
Now, it's our job now to make sure that we renew those gifts year over year. Having 1,000 new donors in our universe over a 24-hour period is pretty amazing. We also had 600 parents give on Day of Giving, which is really wonderful. That's a strong show of support. And we had 534,000 of the 1.5 go directly to Rhody Now, which is really important for Rhody Now. The last stat that I will share is that the top 2 giving allocations were Rhody Now immediate use and Students First funds. That goes back to your question where these gifts are going. That is a brief overview of our excellent results from Day of Giving this year.
A question for you, Jeff. As you look at those 1,000 donors, is there any kind of key themes that might have come out, like age group or college or anything that resonated?
Yeah, it's frankly young alumni. Young alumni are really attracted to Day of Givings like this.
Yeah.
Athletics actually, another stat that I'll share with you.
Well, because Tammy Reese was throwing pies in her face.
Yeah, I know.
Team to Tammy Reese.
So last fiscal year, athletics brought in $350,000 during Day of Giving.
Yeah.
This year it was $664,000.
That's great.
So that really just shows this is an exciting day for our community. It is a great tool to build a culture of philanthropy on campus. But it's a great question. I would say young alumni and athletics really led the way this year.
That's great.
Keep changing.
Great, it's a great report, and alumni participation is such a key metric, as well as dollars raised. So, those early donors who've come in for the first time are the opportunity to build relationships over time. So it's a great set of progress.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can come. Down. I'm doing endowment. Okay, it's a good thing we rehearsed. Isn't it? So the current, we've really grown the endowment. It's gone from 106 million in FY16 to about 230-ish million now. It's still, and you guys are gonna be sick of me hearing this, saying this, but it is very small for a school our age and size. So it's an area we're really focusing on is building endowment. And in the meantime, we have an outstanding investment committee that stewards those funds. So that's just to give you an illustration of our upward trend, but we do have a long way to go.
Well,
how much? Huh?
What is the goal? What are our peers do?
I mean, I think UConn's is more than double, if not triple. Yeah, I think we're probably one of the smaller ones compared, maybe not as small as University of Maine. But
Courtney, they're often measured in two ways, total endowment, but also endowment per student.
yeah,
For example, Harvard has the largest endowment, but Princeton has a larger endowment per student. It would be great at a future meeting for us to just show some of our current peers and aspirational peers. I believe that was among some of the first information we looked at when we were orienting as new board members. It really does tell a picture that this is an area we need to all put sort of shoulder to the wheel and help grow. I would say there's a great momentum story here. We've doubled our endowment in 5 years. It's the rare university that can say that.
Well, and if I can add, the deferred gifts that we were speaking about earlier, Will mentioned $84 million in bequest expectancies. The vast majority of those gifts will go towards the endowment. They're endowed funds that are being created. So, we can expect over the next 10 fiscal years that you're going to see significant growth simply based on the bequest expectancies being realized.
thank you. That's nice. There we go. All right, Jeff's going to talk about endowed faculty positions for us, so just the points around that.
So endowed faculty professorships and chairs are really crucial in recruiting and retaining top talent across the university. We have several, truly just a handful of endowed faculty positions and endowed chairs. Some of them are endowed at significantly lower levels than what is really required to support the position in its entirety. Our peers and certainly industry standard is that when you create an endowed fund for a faculty position or a chair, that it is large enough that the interest it's spinning off each year not only helps to grow the endowed fund, but it's covering the entire salary of that faculty member. We have, I think, one or two of our endowments that is actually doing that. So it just sort of shows that we have a long way to go here. A lot of this, I think, is that we just haven't put emphasis behind it as a top priority across the board. There's been lots of emphasis around capital projects, which are, of course, extremely important. The good news about faculty endowments and chair endowments is that there is no end date. There's no shelf life. They live on in perpetuity, meaning that position will exist forever and always. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think it's great.
Yep, it should be obvious to everybody, but the most important thing that we do as a university has to do with the faculty that we hire. That everything else then follows from that. I mean, they obviously teach the courses, they do the research, but it's the most important decision we make is the recruitment of faculty. So to be in a position to have that professorship is a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's true. And this slide here gives you an idea of where our endowed professorships are. Let me put my glasses on so I can see this. So we have about $7.8 million in endowed funds currently. In order to support those 12 professorships in full, we have a gap of about 4.1 million. And then you can see the gap widens with the chairs. Obviously, the chair of the department is typically compensated at a higher level. The way that we can fix that is really setting some clear expectations on what is required for an endowed position. And we've done some of this already. And I think we're going to look at this document moving forward and make sure we're following it.
So maybe just talk us through it, like a range, like what's the ask, and how many of these would be ideal for a research university?
Well, I think, Mark, we would actually ask the president of the university what's most ideal in the various colleges at the university. And, you know, it's going to change from tenure to tenure. The endowed amounts really should be at the $2 million minimum threshold.
Mhm.
And then you're looking all the way up to $4 or $5 million for a fully endowed chair.
Especially in the sciences, when you need to add for research and labs and things like that. Humanities endowed chairs may be a little less. And a professorship, I think, we can put $1 million.
Yeah.
So two examples of that, Margot, a startup package for a hotshot researcher in artificial intelligence, or they're going to come in with a startup package that, absent an endowed chair for them or endowed professorship for them to come into, really taxes the university in terms of its outlay. And if you think about the chart we saw, that we're now 220 million plus overall, and look here that there's only 20 million, less than 10%, is supporting the core teaching and research enterprise in the form of chairs and endowed professorship. So this is definitely an area I think it's important for the board to understand and be able to talk knowledgeably about with each other and with donors. It's also an area that if we want to get really good at something and competitive at something quickly, the ability to recruit into endowed positions and to announce endowed positions makes that easier. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, so just a couple of things. First of all, it is fairly rare that you have a big enough fund that you're actually able to pay the professor's salary. So, you know, then you're really talking $6 million to $10 million endowment, and they exist. We don't have them, but they do exist. So most of these professorships are actually used to support the lab. We don't have really money, if you will, to, you know, you can always write grants and do it that way, but this makes a big difference in the quality of the professor's life to be able to have the funding from the professorship, because it allows them to explore new ideas, it allows them to tackle new problems, it allows them to diversify their portfolio, and it's a little bit, you know, you spoke about, you know, the president having some flex to be able to jump on an opportunity. It's the same for the faculty member. So it's very, very, very important for us that for the faculty that we're able to do that. So you also mentioned the startup funds, very important. I just want to make one shout out that has been very good with some of our college deans have been very successful in the STEM faculties to be able to connect with businesses in industry to be able to actually support the equipment, because we're basically, you're talking in the 500,000 to $1 million what they need right from the get-go. And there is no question that we have competitors that are, you know, that we expect to be able to compete with, which are even doing much higher. So we've been very fortunate there because I think we've been able to connect, and that's where, you know, one very important thing. But I think this is really this is key. So to your point, Jeff, if we're able, you know, and you can do the back of the envelope math very quickly. If you have a $2 million endowment, you're earning interest, you want to reinvest some, but you want to be able to take whatever that $80,000 a year that's coming out that can be used by the professor. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That really changes. It allows them to visit. It allows them to recruit students. You never know when that great student is going to walk through the door. And if you have those resources, you're able to recruit right on the spot. And that's probably, you know, the next thing that's so important. We have to be able to be in a competitive position, because they will go up the road and you know which schools they'll go to, and those guys will. So we need to get those students. A lot of students come here because of the marine sciences view, but there's many, many other fantastic opportunities. And if you're talking about, as Carlos and Lauren were talking about earlier, around the blue economy, obviously this is important for the business. This is, you know, ocean health, it's nursing, it's health science. It's across the entire university. You mentioned also the quantum computing. We want to position ourselves in an important, so to your point about, you know, discussions with Cicilline and Landrivan, I mean, quantum computing becomes Key and Jack Reed did, Senator Reed did come for that special conference that we had. So this is great. That's not, I didn't mean to discourage anybody that we're behind, but at least I think it's very important we identify the opportunity, and then this will make a huge difference.
Mhm. Yeah, it's great that we had some time to talk about this issue. So if there are no other questions on this piece, we had talked Linda Achardo. Linda, are you there in the room? I'm sorry that I can't see.
Just stepped out, so let me just see.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Great. We talked about that rather than a broader discussion today on reputation and marketing issues. We would rather just do a very brief update if the committee has any questions about some of the press scrutiny and social media activity around the posted agenda, and in particular, the item that relates to board action tomorrow in response to President Parlange's bringing forward the recommendation from the Honorary Degree Committee. So if anyone has any questions for Linda about coverage of that so far, social media activity, we can field those now.
I'm not sure we can really.
As some of you might know,
get into the agenda.
I can say a couple of things that,
Okay.
as some of you know, that the board's agenda and the vote tomorrow regarding the honorary degrees for Lieutenant General Flynn and former Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Those were on the agenda for the Secretary of State's website, so it did go public. We had a statement that was prepared that we sent out. The coverage for this has been mostly local. It hasn't really been beyond our borders. I think it's important for us to stand behind the decisions that we make regarding this, and I think we were responsive and clear in that. We do have the board vote tomorrow. We may have some media who might join us in person. There may be some who will cover the vote. I think we should expect to see a lot of coverage and to see it a little more broadly on Friday. If anyone has any concerns with any media inquiries, they can always contact me or refer any inquiries to our office.
And we can reinforce that again tomorrow. So if there are no questions about that, and that's good. There are other questions of Carlos and Lauren or Linda or Lil before we ask for a motion to adjourn. Mark?
I just wanted to say one thing at the beginning is that Carlos and Lauren have been great. I liked your timeline. It's a sort of a forward-looking timeline, but I think we also have to say that this past semester has been fantastic, and I just I've been very grateful. I am a Rhode Islander, but I am a newbie, and so Carlos has been great. We have spent a lot of time with local representatives. We've spent time with industry partners that are also important. As Lauren said, with our Build Back Better, we have some 85 partners from NGOs to industry to other institutions. So I think that that's extremely important. And it was great last night. I think the governor, in the governor's speech, essentially referred to many aspects of what that Build Back Better was. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happened by basically building up something that is extremely solid. It has involved key partners from the Vice President of Research to many, many, many faculty and staff and students across. So, you heard last night, if you listened to it, that, was it last night? Actually? Two nights ago. Yeah, last night was the basketball win. We can talk about that too. But it was important that he spoke about the Smart Bay. He spoke about aquaculture. He spoke about the Narragansett Bay campus. These are all pieces that obviously URI. And I think about the future, just the quality jobs that we expect in the next 10 years to be able to build up are so important. So anyway, big thank you. And then I want to just thank the Lil and your team have been great, very enthusiastic. That day, Jeff, that you spoke about was wonderful. I do have one story. Apparently, at about midnight, Jim Fleming, the coach of the football team, called Tammy Reese and said, "I give up. You win." Yeah, no, the two of them were going at it head to head, and she had that little bit of energy to do the one more phone call.
I'll just say before you leave, before you cede the floor, President Parlange, that at one of our first meetings, even before you were president, we talked about the opportunity to have URI more visible and more humanized through sort of more active use of social media. And I have to say, I think we can all see that you are leading that effort. And not only are you incredibly active and visible in everything from cheering for basketball games to running with students to tagging sharks, but you're sharing that on your channels, and even seeing the dialogue that you're in with the governor, with Congressman Langevin. It really is noticed, and it really does a lot for URI's visibility. So kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Yeah, no, it's been a really great team effort, and I feel really fortunate to work with really fantastic people. And I have to say, we have the best board of trustees in the country.
Well,
No,
you won't get disagreement from this group.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I think if there's nothing further, I'm sorry, there's a hand up I can see.
Christine, I just wanted to call out the advertising for recruitment as well. I've been seeing it out and around and people have been talking about it. It's really, really good.
It is. It's leading up to the February 1 deadline.
Yeah, right. And it's been noticed by people and it's very good.
If I can, I'm going to talk just briefly about it tomorrow, but I wanted to mention that our student numbers at this point are better than last year, and last year was our best year ever.
That's amazing.
And what is significant about it is there's only about a quarter of the universities in the US that are actually seeing, because of the demographic shifts, especially in the Northeast. So we are an attractor to the state of Rhode Island of a lot of smart students, you know.
Wonderful. Thank you for raising that, Barbara. Was there another hand? Was that Courtney or someone else?
Nope, just raising for Barbara.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And maybe if I could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved. This is Courtney.
Is there a second?
Second,
All right. Those in favor?
Yes.
yes.
Yes, for me. Those opposed? If you are opposed or abstain, please identify yourself for the minutes, and look forward to seeing you all tomorrow and to announce our next upcoming meeting of this committee, which will be held on April 21st, 2022. So thanks for those gathered, especially at this late hour. Thanks for those who've joined us online, and look forward to our meeting tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that was